Welcome to the AFGHANEYE YouTube channel. If this is your first visit, make sure to subscribe and press the notification bell so that you won't miss any of our new videos. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers and listeners. Welcome back to a second AFGHANEYE live on the 15th of August 2021, the day when Kabul fell and the President Ashraf Ghani escaped the country. The situation is developing. There are many breaking news, developing stories. So what we're going to do is cover as much as possible. We will be adding new content, new stories, and new analysis on the go during the live stream. So there is no script, so bear with us if we have little glitches and stuff like that. But anyways, please make sure that you share the link of the live stream, like the stream, share it with everyone, let everyone know. We have sources inside Kabul, in and around the city, the former green zone of Kabul, but also in outskirts of Kabul. We are getting information from sources in Kabul as we are live right now. So I will be sharing everything that we have, whether it's audio, video, pictures, anything. So
bear with us, guys. I'm just going to send out the pictures. Sorry, I'm sending out the link, and whilst I'm sending it out, I also expect that you guys send it out as well. Sangar neglected to mention that 15th of August is also Indian Independence Day, but that isn't really important at the moment. So I'm just going to send out the link to everyone, and we will be talking in the following minutes. Let's just wait for more and more people to join us as we discuss events that are unfolding in Afghanistan.
okay, guys. Just help us with sharing the link. So make sure that you share the link with as many people as possible. Let me see. Let me also share it on Twitter. These are indeed crazy times. I must
By the
say.
way, guys, I've been told by sources that Qanuni and the Masood Khail family have not escaped to Pakistan. They've actually been invited there. So we will talk about that in a bit. Just make sure you remind us about that because there's obviously a lot of news unfolding as we talk. Ah, and another thing, I've just been informed that from what's it called? From Ghazni, 500 a 500 strong Taliban force has been deployed or dispatched to Kabul to ensure security there.
Okay, how are you doing?
We've got some more people with us now, and yeah, let's just.
Okay. Yes, we have great friends who are really helping out with sharing the link. So you guys, thank you very much for
Sayed
doing that.
Sayed Haq, thank you for sharing the link. I'm expecting the rest of you guys to do so as well. Because let's face it, we're sharing it anyway, so you may as well do so.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Walid.
Vale. Yes.
So did you, while you were taking a rest, were there any specific news stories that were like just uh, overwhelmed you?
I'm beyond the stage of being overwhelmed, to be honest. I'm just receiving information, reading it on Twitter and being messaged it, and that's about it. Um, I saw, I saw Golara Shirzai being um, congratulating the Taliban. Uh, it's funny how things change, right?
Yeah, we will play that video
Of course.
later on. Um, besides something that really like uh, made a big impression while we were
Apparently,
offline.
Ashraf Ghani has released a statement. Let me just try getting that.
Okay.
Why have Afghans gone pro-Taliban all of a sudden? That's a good question. My suspicion is that a lot of Afghans that were closet sympathizers of the Taliban um, now feel emboldened and don't feel scared or don't feel, any inhibition in revealing their long-standing um, their long-standing opinions. Obviously, some of those Afghans will be opportunists. Some of those Afghans, I suspect, will be won over by the fact that the Taliban didn't really, it was relatively less bloody as you would have imagined, right? So yeah, I think there are a number of reasons for it, and obviously there's just pure opportunism. Um, but I feel like a lot of those were just scared of coming out of the closet, if you will, the whole time.
There were a lot of people who changed their tunes in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
People who worked for the government, people who were appearing on TV, defending the government, etc. Suddenly, you saw this change about a year ago, year and a half ago, and most
And
of them were guys who didn't work anymore for the government.
there was also, I think that with the Doha deal, the Taliban gained a level of legitimacy, and a lot of Afghans were won over by the fact that they actually got Americans, they actually got the Americans to sit down and agree to withdraw, whereas before it was sort of a distant sort of it was an impossibility almost for a lot of Afghans. So I think there are multiple sort of reasons for why a lot of Afghans seem to be pro-Taliban now.
Okay, so the first story that we are going to do today is about the vehicles loaded with cash, 3 Land Cruisers loaded with cash. We're going to discuss that. Um, just 1 second, guys.
Um, Muramasa is asking, what is the current ethnic makeup of the Taliban? I would say Pashtuns are probably the largest group, if not the majority, but it's difficult to get information when you don't really have any sort of. We don't even have any information on exactly how many fighters they have, let alone anything else. But increasingly, over the last 20 years, especially after 2015, you're seeing more and more people from outside the original Kandari clique being uh, being incorporated into the leadership council. We're receiving reports from Aslan Rasul that there have been 2 explosions in Kabul. We've also got a statement from Ashraf Ghani on Facebook. Um, and yeah, Sangar, agami po WhatsApp ki dar
Okay, so yes. Okay, guys. So I think you can see the tweet of
Hamal
former.
Baloch is asking, are you two supporters of the Taliban movement? No, we are not. We are, independent, unaffiliated, and just dedicated to critically analyzing Afghanistan's past, present, and future, and dedicated to providing a counter narrative to the mainstream coverage that's been prevalent over the last 2 and 4 decades.
Okay, guys. So former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs in Afghanistan, Irshad Ahmadi, has posted a tweet where he says that President Ashraf Ghani fled to Uzbekistan or Tajikistan. That was unclear. This tweet was a couple of hours ago. And what he said is that saw their helicopters flew out of Ark at 3:20 p.m. Kabul time. And Mohib, so the national security advisor, in Mohib's residence in Ark, they left 3 land cruisers full of dollars, causing a fight among his guards while looting. Yeah, he says, I hope money is recovered. How much
Just
did
give me
they
a second,
manage to get
Sangar. I'm
away?
getting a call. I presume it's important.
All right.
I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. So this story is basically what is now being discussed by a lot of people because the president Ashraf Ghani, he ran away. Basically, he escaped the country. His inner circle, people like Hamdullah Moheb, etc., they all left the country with him. But while they were escaping, they forgot or they couldn't or they didn't manage to take all the money that were left behind in those 3 land cruisers. And those
Sangar, I'm
vehicles...
going to have to interrupt you. Apparently, Al Jazeera Arabic Live is showing the transfer of power live. Is
Now,
it possible that we're able to put that on our...
yes, it's possible. Okay.
All right. زدا وستر لينك در است در ليجن.
Okay.
واتساب كده. والكيجي جدايا ما ده حكومة ده اقتدار ده انتقال مراسم دي دا وس مجيغورو او عين حال كي والكيجي چه ده ارگ سرايا وانفجار سوي ده نو خبر نیم چه واقعیت ایت دي.
Okay. Wait. So while I was offline, guys, I wasn't sitting and doing nothing. I made some preparations so that we don't have any annoying glitches anymore. So
وأعطاني رقم السيد حمد الله قال بإمكانك أن تنسق معه عملية تسليم وتسلم.
کرزی صاحب له ما سره تماس ونیول یو غوله دفتر نه سي ارګ ما پرېږدی خدا نه خواسته دلته ځینې خلک د طالب په نامو داخل نسی او چور نسی غارت نسی خوشبختانه سي داسې کارونه سو بعد د تماسونه له مولوي صاحب سره زر عالم له دې سره یو ځای او فعلا موږ د ګلخانې په ماڼۍ کې یو ستاسې وینو.
Can you translate?
I've missed most of it. Like, I can't remember off the top of my head.
يقول جاءتني توصية من سيد سانغزي قال عليك أن لا تترك القصر الرئاسي حتى لا يستغل الآخرون هذه الفرصة ويدخل القصر الرئاسي وربما يعمل بأعمال تخريبية. فأنا أيضا حافظت على هذه الإرث التاريخي للشعب الأفغاني، واليوم أنا أقوم به رسميا بأسلمه إلى حركة الطالبان، وأيضا أنا أهنئهم. وهذه صفحة جديدة في تاريخ أفغانستان بعد 20 سنة من تواجد القوات الأجنبية والأمريكية في أفغانستان، وأتمنى أن تكون فعل خير على الشعب وعلينا جميعا. نعم.
ما هو اسمه بيوصل فيه أخلو وام خستر.
He said he wanted to take a selfie.
I think everyone understood. Tori Longeki بصوتي دا مختا جناستا.
إذن حميد الله، شاهدنا وإياكم إذن أعزائي المشاهدين هذه الصور، ولا زلنا مباشرة من القصر الرئاسي وعملية استلام وتسليم من أحد الحراس السابقين للرئيس السابق أشرف غني لأحد مسؤولي وقيادات طالبان. أريد أن أستفسر منك حميد الله محمد شاه عن القيادي الذي كان يجلس على الكرسي القيادي في حركة طالبان، من هو؟
Let me go there.
هو
Can you give me the link in the chat and then I will switch to that one as well.
هو مسؤول عن الأمن من العاصمة والبعثات الدبلوماسية، وأيضا عن الجزء الشرقي من العاصمة الأفغانية كابول.
إذن هو المسؤول الآن عن أمن العاصمة وعن البعثات الدبلوماسية وتأمينها. حدثنا أكثر عن
Altijd klaar voor actie. Overal is competitie. Er is altijd wel iemand die van jou...
But it's they're very dramatic scenes that we
it's
are
on
showing
screen,
you
guys.
live
You
from
can
the
now
presidential
watch
palace in Kabul. The palace where, of course, the former presidents, Ashraf Ghani was. I beg your pardon. I've just a small correction there. This was a handover of the palace and not the power. So there's still some confusion this hour, but that palace official was handing over the palace to the Taliban. Handing over the palace to the Taliban. So there's still some confusion about the balance of power, who is in charge of Afghanistan, but certainly with recent events unfolding the way they have, the chaos continues, but certainly very arresting images for you. That's Taliban fighters and officials speaking exclusively to Al Jazeera Arabic. We have had the palace official handing over the presidential palace to those Taliban fighters. Remember, of course, that I think I'm correct in believing that a few hours earlier we had a recorded statement from Ashraf Ghani, who was reassuring Afghan civilians that they would be safe and Kabul would not fall, presumably recorded inside the walls of that palace where we now have I'm being told we have translation. Let's listen in and hear what's being said inside the presidential palace in Kabul.
Let's go.
Okay. So I'm going to check the Ashraf Ghani statement.
So we're just
now that you have entered the city. Are you going to revive the previous Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, or are you going to share power with the others as well? Our program is that the Commission for the Islamic Emirate, they have formed a political committee which is engaging with other committees. They are carrying out consultations and leading to good arrangement for the future of Afghanistan.
Okay, in any case, I think that's pretty clear now.
When
So
are your
we've got live
leaders coming
footage in
to
Al Jazeera
Afghanistan?
of the presidential palace, the Ark, in which numerous Afghan presidents have died, right? I think Dawood Khan was killed in the Ark. Nur Muhammad Tarake was killed in Ark. I believe Hafizullah Amin died in the Taj Beg Palace, right? Um, you know, this presidential palace, I believe Zahir Shah lived in it with Hamid Karzai in the beginning of the US occupation. And now we're seeing that it's handed over to the Taliban. It's worthy to note that the Taliban during their previous emirate didn't really use the Ark because Mullah Omar generally ruled from his house in Kandahar. But in any case, it's a moment of huge symbolic importance. What I would say is that it seems that they want to make this a show of force, which is why the two senior figures at the bottom who are seated are surrounded by fighters, armed. You know, that I would probably say that's probably not the best way to go about that in order if you want to portray a peaceful image. But obviously, peace isn't the only thing on the agenda. It's equally important, I guess, at least in their rationale, that a show of force is projected, especially as we've heard that there have been, the Taliban have demanded now that power to be transferred to them totally and without sort of any sort of transitional government.
Okay, Walid, we're going to now transition to Ashraf Ghani's statement. Let me just send it to you as well.
دای لکه چې پښتو ده خو دلته اکثرا پښتو باندې نه پیږي او
Yeah,
که
so I will
پیږي
read
لوستلی
it.
نسی
I will read
انګلیسي
it.
استه انګلیسي استه
No, is it on Facebook?
یا زما درته په واتساپ کې در واستول
Yeah. Where? All right, here. Oh, he has also a. Okay. Just a moment. Okay. So let me transition back to this. Okay. The Pashto statement was issued earlier. Okay. Oh man, it's small. You can barely read it. Okay, so here we go. This is the statement of President Ashraf Ghani, or former president. He starts with okay. He starts off with, oh my God. Here. He starts off, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Dear countrymen, today I came across a hard choice. I should stand to face the armed Taliban who wanted to enter the palace or leave the dear country that I dedicated my life to, protecting the past 20 years. If there were still countless countrymen martyred and they would face the destruction of Kabul city, the result would have been a big human disaster in this 6 million city.
By the way, I think this is directly translated from Google Translate. I don't think they actually bothered to write a full-on English one, but what he means is a city of 6 million people. And the Taliban have made it to remove me.
You see also that the protecting, destruction and destruction. So this is Google Translate, okay?
Yeah.
The Taliban have made it to remove me. They are here to attack all Kabul and the people of Kabul in order to avoid the bleeding flood. I thought it was best to get out. Taliban have won the judgment of sword and guns, and now they are responsible for protecting the countrymen's honor, wealth, and self-esteem. Didn't they win the legitimacy of hearts?
I think he's saying they didn't win the legitimacy of hearts. Never in history has...
What does mean winning the legitimacy of hearts?
I think what he's saying is Rune the Khalq wa Nagartala.
Yeah. Never in history.
He didn't win people's heart. They didn't win people's hearts, essentially.
Yeah. Never in history has dry power given the legitimacy to anyone and won't give it to them. They are now facing a new historical test. Either they will protect the name and honor of Afghanistan, or they will prioritize other places and networks. Many people and many Akshar are in fear and are unreliable in the future. It is necessary for Taliban to assure all the people, nations, different sectors, sisters and women of Afghanistan to win the legitimacy and the hearts of the people. Make a clear plan to do and share it with the public. I will always continue to serve my nation with an intellectual moment and a plan to develop. Lots more talk for the future. Long live Afghanistan. Would you like to break down what he just said? Because I think most of our viewers and listeners...
Can you bring up the Pashto? Bring up the Pashto. And let's try to work with that.
Okay. I think the English, that's quite pathetic that the English is just Google Translate. It's like, what is he doing? The entire presidency can be
summarized in this one thing.
Incompetence. Incompetence. Just, oh man. So we were earlier discussing how 3 Toyota Land Cruisers filled with dollars were left behind in Arg, and the guards started fighting one another, and this guy ran away. So he was trying to steal money. God knows how much money he eventually took, but now look at his statement. It's like, okay, here is the Pashto statement. Do you have it?
All right, let me see.
Okay. So he basically we already covered what he's saying, but in general, what's important is that he first part of his statement, he said that he is leaving the country because otherwise Taliban would have entered and a lot of people would have died. And in order to avoid bloodshed and killing, and because Taliban are in the city and trying to kill everyone, he decided that he should go away to prevent this situation. But then in the latter part...
Sorry, I'm just reading it. Okay, so...
So basically, in the second part of his statement, he switches tone and he starts addressing the Taliban and telling them what their responsibilities are and what they should do, etc. So
he's alleging that the Taliban were threatened to storm the city if he didn't step aside. So that's what he's saying.
Yeah, so he's saying that he
Talibanu dad sargand karewa, sarganda karewa, chizmali di kawalula para hazirdi, Tol Kabul or the Kabul Sharif Wallace Bandi Khunrei Hamla Wakri. As in, they basically said that they were prepared to launch a bloody assault on Kabul. Deel para Jawini Toyawelu Selab Tach Makhniwe Washi Mada Gaur Wakat Mada I considered it Mada Gaura Waganala Jawazam. I considered it suitable or to leave. The Turiyo the Tawfaq Qazawat Taliban Gartale. So the Taliban won the judge. They basically won according to the sword and the gun. Awas watan walan the namus mal au zand satalu masuldi. So they're now responsible for protecting the wealth, the honor, and the lives of the people. So they haven't won the legitimacy of the hearts. They haven't won people's hearts. It's kind of a tarikh never in history before has brute force alone bestowed legitimacy on people, and neither will it ever do so. آزمایانی سر مخامختی یا به افغانستان نو معاوضت ساتنی ساتی او یا به نور و زایون او شبکو تلومریتو برکوی. So they are now face to face with a new historical test. Either they will work for the name and the honor of Afghanistan, or they will prioritize other places and other networks. دیر خلق و دیر اقشار پر دار کیدی او پراتون کی باندی به باور دی طالبان تلازم ده چه در افغانستان طول ولسون و قومون و بیلا بیلو اقشار و خواند و میرمن تا داد ورکری. So a lot of people are nervous and anxious. It is now the duty of the Taliban to reassure the masses, the different tribes, ethnicities, the sisters and the madams of Afghanistan. چې د مشروعیت په ګټلو د خلکو زړونه او ډاډه کولو لپاره واضحي طرحې جوړي او ولس سره شریکي. So they should have clear plans to win the legitimacy amongst the people and share these with the masses. زه به همیش د خپل ولس د خدمت ته د فکري له لحاظه او د برنامو د مطرح کولو Wait, sorry, is that برنامه؟ Yeah, برنامه د مطرح کولو لپاره د مطرح کولو له لارې دوام ورکړم ډېرې نورې خبرې د راتلونکي لپاره. So I will always continue to serve my people from an intellectual capacity, and I will continue to do so. There is much more left to be said. Long may Afghanistan live.
Okay, well, let's break this down. Okay, first of all, in his statement, he makes the claim that he decided to leave the presidential palace because otherwise the Taliban would storm the city and massacre everyone, and etc., etc. Now, the question is, you said, President Ghani said numerous times that the security forces in Afghanistan are capable of defending the country. Okay, well, let's just let that slide. They couldn't prevent the Taliban takeover, but at least they were capable of preventing Taliban storming into the city. Well, that wasn't apparently so. So he left the presidential palace. Otherwise, there will be massacres. But then, if you say that these guys are going to massacre everyone and they will kill everyone, and that's what they wanted to do, and that's why he has decided to leave, then why does he start lecturing Taliban on protecting people and safeguarding women's rights, etc., etc.? Like, come on, you have just stated that these guys are about to kill everyone and massacre the whole city and commit horrendous crimes, but then you go on lecturing them. Does that make any sense?
It doesn't. Trader Ferry is asking Ahmed-Waleed Urora, what's happened to Amrullah Saleh? He, other than declaring that he will never surrender in capital letters, Uh, I don't know what's happening to Amrullah Saleh or what's happened to him. There's another thing as well. He says here that for the sake or knowing that the Taliban will threaten to basically rampage across Kabul and spill a lot of blood, that's why he fled. Well, by the same logic, why didn't he do so earlier?
Yeah, exactly. If he
Were you totally were you aware, like were you not aware of the fact that your government couldn't survive in the face of a Taliban onslaught? So if you're doing the people of Kabul this mass favor by fleeing, okay, but why didn't you do this earlier? Why didn't you do this 1 month ago, 2 months ago? And in fact, you didn't need to flee. No one was asking you to flee. They were just asking you to engage in meaningful negotiations. What are you talking about, kind of thing? You know, this is cowardice disguised as chivalry. The Taliban didn't say we want Ashraf. I mean, I'm assuming the Taliban ultimatum, if they did give an ultimatum, it wasn't Ashraf Ghani should leave the city, otherwise we'll massacre everyone. I'm assuming it was that he should step down. And I don't know. There's a
okay.
You know, I wish you had this foresight a month or 2 months ago. Is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, so this statement comes after we have heard from former Deputy Minister of Finance that they have found 3 SUVs loaded with cash inside Presidential Palace. So what was he doing? What this man who says that his dream was to build up the country, etc., etc. Why were they having these 3 vehicles loaded with cash there? What how is that how does that even make sense? But anyway, so let's move on, okay? So we'll move on to the next issue. We have a statement by Gulagha Shirzai, who maybe you can tell us a little bit about who Gulagha Shirzai is, and then I will pull up his video.
So Gulagha Shirzai is the son of a famous Mujahid in Kandahar who's obviously now passed away, and that famous Mujahid was called Haji Latif Sagwan. Now Haji Latif, prior to the Soviet invasion, was a shopkeeper. He became a famous Barakzai. He was a Barakzai, as Gulagha Shirzai is. So they come from the same tribe as the former Afghan royal family. But Haji Latif was not sort of a man born into privilege in that sense. He was a shopkeeper. He wasn't a high-ranking official in the government. Haji Latif died, and Gulagha Shirzai sort of succeeded him. He called himself Shirzai, as in son of the lion, after his father passed away, I believe. He was also a Mujahideen commander, but he's also been notorious for his love of boys, prepubescent boys. And he was one of these Mujahideen warlords that basically took part in the destruction of Afghanistan in the civil war. When the Taliban movement first came about in Kandahar, around Maywand and around Panjwai, they later took the city, and Gulagha Shirzai was exiled. He was basically the typical warlord, corrupt. His men were notorious for crimes and abuses. And Gulagha Shirzai himself, like I said, is notorious for liking to have sex with prepubescent boys. Now, in 2001, Gulagha Shirzai was a CIA asset. So when the Americans invaded Afghanistan, Gulagha, as well as Hamid Karzai, were who the CIA relied upon to cause unrest in the Taliban's heartlands in the south in Kandahar. And after 2001, Gulagha was basically, I believe, appointed as governor. Now, Gulagha was the governor of Kandahar for 3 years, whereas Hamid Karzai's brother, Ahmed-Waleed Karzai, was head of the provincial council. Now, obviously, Karzai and Gulagha Shirzai come from 2 different tribes. Gulagha is a Barakzai, Karzai himself is a Popalzai. Eventually, whilst they were initially allies, they became rivals, and Gulagha was basically relocated to become the governor of Nangarhar. And that is basically the story of Gulagha Shirzai. It's further south. So in this post 2001 Afghanistan, specifically Kandahar. It was in Spin Boldak area where General Raziq's family were given a lot of power, and they were trained basically trained. They used the Spin Boldak crossing with the Durand line to levy customs and tolls and made a lot of money that way. So essentially, Gulaga created this network of patronage that ran parallel to government as well as within government, that consisted almost uniformly of his own kinsmen, his own relatives, his own allies, his own tribesmen. And that obviously deteriorated the situation in Kandahar and was one of the reasons behind which the Taliban made a comeback. That is Gul Agha Shirzai. He's been a foe of the Taliban for the last 2 decades. I believe even after the Americans invaded Afghanistan, Gul Agha was notorious for just shooting people on the mere suspicion that they were Taliban. There have even been allegations that if Barakzai Taliban were found, Gul Agha Shirzai would find a way in which they could basically be pardoned to essentially take advantage of tribal rivalries within the Taliban itself. Now, obviously, the American policy of trying to divide and rule and create tribal rivalries to basically cement their own support base didn't work, because obviously the Americans failed in that. They got kicked out of Afghanistan. But that is some sort of flavor as to who Gul Agha Shirzai is.
Okay, so let's just have a look at what he has to say.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Da Pakistan di Islami Amarat طول مجاهدين مشرتابته الله تعالى مبارك وين.
Okay, pause it there.
Pakistan طول خلقته. زما خواست دادي أوهم.
So he's saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. I would like to say from the bottom of my heart, I would like to congratulate from the bottom of my heart the Mujahideen of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, and I would like to congratulate all of Afghanistan's people.
The Kabul Shariamte, the Gulu Makhniwaki, how the Islamic Amarat, the Mujahideen Param Kariwaki.
Okay, and he's basically saying that I call upon the residents of Kabul city to stop the thieves, the looters, the bandits, and to work and cooperate with the Mujahideen of the Islamic Emirate.
Okay.
And then he said a couple of stuff afterwards. So after the Mujahideen said Hamkari waki.
Did you get everything?
No, I only listened. I only managed to get up until the bit where he said the Ghlo Makhniwaya of the Mujahideen said Hamkari waki.
او زبا ان شاء الله د خپل وطن په بهبود کې په آبادی کې او د خپل وطن په امنیت کې زبا د دې سره د اسلامي امارت د مجاهدینو سره هر څه همکاري وکم تل دې وي افغانستان ژوندی دې وي د افغانستان پاک مجاهدین والسلام.
Okay. So he's saying that I am currently in my house and I am prepared to work and cooperate with the pure Mujahideen of the Islamic Emirate. I will always work for the flourishing of Afghanistan. Long may Afghanistan live, and long may the pure Mujahideen of Afghanistan live. That was Gul Agha Shirzai.
Okay, so do you want to get? Do you want to see what Al Jazeera is discussing right now? Or?
Yes, please. But before that, just an announcement. For everyone that's interested in Gul Agha Shirzai and the tribal dynamics of Kandahar, especially after 2001, there is an article that Sangar and myself wrote on our website, AFGHANEYE.org, and it's called Is Tribal Warfare, something about tribal warfare in Kandahar. So you'll be able to understand more from there.
Okay, so we're going back to Al Jazeera.
Frank Adado is asking, guys, are the Pashtuns of
What's going on
Afghanistan and
inside the
Pakistan
presidential
different?
palace?
Are they not the same people split by a line? We'll answer that question in a bit. And to everyone asking where Gul Agha is, he said he's at his home, which I assume is in Kabul.
Yes.
So Al Jazeera is basically...
Okay, this is
Zulmat, I
sufficient
don't know
for
what your
now.
question was. If you could ask it again, I'll answer it.
So things are
this-
moving very fast, of course. Anyone following events throughout the day will have known that things have been moving very fast, very unpredictable. What we've just been watching is that's one of our colleagues from Al Jazeera Arabic who is inside the presidential palace with those Taliban fighters, basically doing a show and tell for our viewers in Arabic. So after that flag had been taken down, the flag of Afghanistan inside the Afghan presidential palace, we have been showing you some of the objects inside that room. We now have one of the fighters on the phone, clearly discussing those monumental events. This is the Taliban, of course, very many viewers just joining us, who are inside the presidential palace in Kabul. One of the officials of the palace has officially handed the palace over to those Taliban fighters. There's a lot of chaos and confusion going on right now, but certainly those fighters are taking our colleague and cameraman throughout the palace, heading down some stairs there. Rob, you're following these images for us as well. We're getting a tour, it would appear, of the Afghan presidential palace.
Yes, we are. I'm enjoying
astonishing
that tour.
footage, really. A very grand building. We're getting the tour of inside the presidential palace. Of course, the Afghan president, Ashraf Ghani, no longer...
Waleed, we just received a €250 donation.
...that he has fled to... He left Kabul, rather, to avoid the...
Thank you very much for your generous donation.
Message will be received by the people of Kabul and the people of Afghanistan who were assured by him.
Yeah, I mean, we're already getting some reaction to Ashraf Ghani's departure. I mean, we're getting, and it is not very complimentary. I mean, Dr. Abdullah, seen largely as his adversary in the Afghan government, he's said that that Ghani left to people in a bad position. God will make him accountable, ultimately will judge him, it seems. We had the defense minister of Ghani's government saying that he tied the hands behind the back of the people and sold.
Waleed, so what do you think? Should we switch over because they are not telling anything?
I've just sent a video of پیام امیر مجاهد حزب اسلامی محترم حکمتیار در رابطه جنگجو. Okay, I can't read that word, but basically we have a message finally from the man himself, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar.
Okay, and
to the guys who are discussing Pashtun tribal geography, language, and all of that, we'll get to that in a bit. But can we sort of focus on the topic? I humbly ask, in order that we may be able to answer the questions that are relevant to what we're talking about at the moment.
So you want to switch over to the statement of Hekmatyar?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So it's also on YouTube. Okay.
If you manage a team, you should be using Monday.com.
Ads.
Yeah, man. Horrible. But what can you do about it? Okay, so Guys, in the chat, if there is anything in audio or any glitches, let us know, please, yeah? Waleed, would you like to translate?
Yes.
Here we go.
But just pause it when I request you to, because then I lose what is said afterwards.
الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى وبعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ګرانو هیوادوالو د کابل درنو شهریانو السلام علیکم ورحمت الله وبرکاته لکه څنګه چې مو ژمنه کړې وه هغه ورځ چې کابل ته راغلو چې د خپل ولس په څنګ کې به وو هغوی به سختو ورځو کې یوازې نه پرېږدو.
Okay, can you replay that? You know what? Can you mute your mic and I'm gonna pause it there. Okay, mute yourself so then I can listen to it on YouTube and then translate it. Okay, and when I put my hand like this, I'm gonna tell you to. It will mean pause. Okay.
سلام على عباده الذين اصطفى وبعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ګرانو هیوادوالو د کابل درنو شهریانو السلام علیکم ورحمت الله وبرکاته لکه څنګه چې مو ژمنه کړې وه هغه ورځ چې کابل ته راغلو چې د خپل ولس په څنګ کې به وو هغوی به سختو ورځو کې یوازې نه پرېږدو.
Okay, pause there. So he starts off with Salaam Alaikum, with a prayer, and then he says, beloved compatriots, respected residents of Kabul, as we promised the day that we first arrived in Kabul. He's referencing the peace deal he made with President Ashraf Ghani in 2014. He's saying, just as we promised back then, and we made a commitment that we would not abandon the people of Kabul, and we would stand with them in their difficult and their hard days. Sangar, could we continue, please?
متاسفانه مفسد دولت دې ته چمتو نشو چې له جنگ لاس واخلي د افغانستان بحران په سوله ییزه توګه حل شي.
Okay, pause there. Unfortunately, the corrupt and mischievous or evil-doing government was not prepared to abandon war and to solve the people's difficulties via a peaceful resolution. It wasn't prepared to do that. Sangar, can we continue? So they weren't prepared to transfer authority to an interim administration and through this to end this war. Okay, the situation is now such that they, as in the government, are now not even able to secure the city of Kabul to ensure security. Can we continue?
په داسې حال کې چې طالبانو امارت اسلامي یوه درانه فیصله وکړه خپلو جنګیالیو ته وویل چې کابل ته له ننوتو به ډډه کوئ د کابل دروازو کې پاتې شئ.
Okay, pause there. And he said this was in such a scenario where the Taliban or the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan had instructed very strongly its fighters to not enter Kabul and to remain at the gates.
چې د دې نه سرغړاوی وکړ کابل ته داخل شو مسؤلیت به په غاړه مرګ هدر ده موږ د دې درنې فیصلې قدر کوو
they later entered this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sangar, because I missed some of the stuff he said. But he said they later violated this instruction and entered Kabul in order to secure its to make it secure, to ensure its security. And we respect and we welcome this step. Is that what he said, Sangar? Because I couldn't hear him that well.
Yeah, so what he's saying, basically what we covered in our previous live stream earlier today, is that initially the Taliban were told not to enter the city, but then they changed their mind.
To ensure security. Okay, can we continue?
څوک چې اسلام سره تعهد لري د خپل ولس په نسبت زړه‌سوی لري هغه به هیڅکله دې ته ترجیح ورنه کړي چې راشي د ده له وجې نه د هغوی سر او عزت ته صدمه ورسېږي.
So he who is committed to Islam, he who is committed to his people, تعهد وکړي خپل ولس ته ژمن وي, will never ever do the step of will never ever flee, right? And they will never be humiliated as such, which is basically a veiled insult at former President Ashraf Ghani.
داخل نشي اوس متاسفانه شاید استخباراتي کړۍ په هغوی پورې تړلي عناصر مفسدین اشرار د دې هڅه کوي چې د کابل وضع ناامنه کړي له دې فرصت نه غلط استفاده وکړي.
So he's saying, unfortunately, now it is possible that evildoers, mischief makers, the corrupt will try to take advantage of Kabul's precarious situation and try to destabilize it and exacerbate existing problems.
دغه چې د لوټمار لپاره په کمین کې دي ډزې کوي وی خواته بلې خواته ناامني را پیدا کوي دفترونو ته او د خلکو کورونو ته ننوځي د کابل ولس.
He talks about the looters who've basically they are firing their weapons here and there, and they're entering people's homes and stealing. So he's basically talking about them.
اطمینان ورکوو چې تاسو کولی شئ خپل امنیت په خپله تامین کړئ.
We would like to reassure the people of Kabul that they themselves can ensure their own security.
خپل امنیت په خپله تامین کړي د شپې د ورځې ګزمه وکړي هیڅ پردي ته ناشنا کس ته اجازه ورنه کړي چې داخل شي هغه خلک چې غواړي شرارت وکړي.
And they shouldn't fire shots during night, and they should not allow any outsiders to enter amongst them. Something I forgot exactly what he said, but they shouldn't permit outsiders to enter amongst them. Okay, protect your own security.
په امارت اسلامي او مجاهدینو باندې هم غږ کوم چې په خپلې فیصلې باندې کلک ودرېږئ او یو ځل بیا په ډېرو سریع الفاظو اعلان وکړئ چې دا افراد چې دلته شرارت کوي ناامني را پیدا کوي په دوی پورې قطعا مربوط نه دي دوی شرارت کوي موږ تعهد کړی کابل ته نه داخلیږو مثلا نور حل ده.
Sure. Can you pause there? So he's basically saying that he's basically saying that I call upon the Mujahideen and on the Islamic Emirate to stand by the decisions that they have taken and to make a clear, unambiguous announcement and let it be known that those who are in the city causing evil, mischief, corruption, spreading corruption, that they are not whatsoever tied to the current government. They are not tied to the Islamic Emirate, and yeah, it was like that.
Kabul دروازې ستاسو په مخ خلاص دي.
The gates of Kabul are open to you.
سبا ته کېدای شي په ارګ کې استقبال وشي
Okay, so he's saying that the gates of Kabul are now open to you, and a delegation of the Islamic Emirate may now enter. It is possible that tomorrow in the Ark, in the presidential palace, you will be formally welcomed. There is no need for you in discussions about a future government to talk with the Kabul government.
د طالبانو هیئت دې هم کابل ته راشي دا مذاکرات اوس دلته وشي امنیتي ځواکونو باندې هم غږ کوم چې
He's saying that the Taliban's political delegation should now come to Kabul and they should negotiate in Kabul.
دا افراد چې شرارت کوي ناامني رامنځته کوي دا طالبانو امارت اسلامي پورې مربوط خلک نه دي شریر او شرخوش خلک دي غواړي لوټمار وکړي تاسو هم د خپلو ساحو د خپلو حوزو قطاعاتو امنیت تامین کوي راځو په ګډه د کابل ولس سره یو ځای امنیت تامینوو له طالبانو سره خبره کوو هغوی ته بلنه ورکوو چې سبا ته د هغوی دروند هیات راشي همدلته د راتلونکي په ارتباط خبره کوو.
Okay, so he's saying that I call upon the security forces to ensure the security of their checkposts, their respective areas of responsibility, their police districts. And I also tell them that these looters, these thieves, these people who are causing mischief, they are not related to the Taliban, and that the security forces, should in turn also secure the city. He said that, and then he said the respected Taliban delegation will come tomorrow.
أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
And I don't need to translate that. So that was Hekmatyar's announcement. For everyone that was asking me yesterday, Ahmed-Waleed, where is Gulbuddin? Just, you know, it reminds me of the the Thingy Chappelle thing of where's Ja Rule? Everyone's asking me, Ahmed-Waleed, where is Gulbuddin in all of this? Well, we finally heard. Where's Ja? Where is Heki? But in any case, we now know where Gulbuddin is. That was his announcement. And the key notes there are that he's calling on the Taliban. He said that despite the fact that the Taliban pledged not to enter the city of Kabul, they had to. They violated that pledge, but he was basically sort of praising them for that. And he was calling on the Taliban to now shift the site of negotiations to Kabul and not Doha. He was telling them that the Kabul government, no longer basically exists, so there's no need to negotiate with them, that they would be formally received and welcomed in the presidential palace tomorrow. And he was calling on the security forces to basically ensure and understand that the looters were not Taliban, but they were just acting in their own private capacity. And he also said that, unfortunately, according to him, the former government, and I can't believe I'm saying that, Sangar, because 5 hours ago it wasn't the former government, right? But the former government of President Ashraf Ghani was not willing to resolve this peacefully, and it thus no longer exists.
Okay, guys, speaking of former government, a lot of these people have escaped the country. They're running away. They're trying to find shelter either in Uzbekistan or India, Dubai, Turkey, whatever. We've been saying this all along, that they're trying to run away. Now, I'm going to show you a perfect example of such person. So here is...
Syed Haq is reporting that Mullah Shirin Akhund has been appointed as governor for Kabul province.
Our friends are going to get killed. They're going to kill us. Our women are not going to have any more rights. And that's all. I can't believe the world abandoned Afghanistan.
So this is one of the most prominent figures within Kabul bubble. Her name is Mariam Sulaiman Khail. She is born in Fremont, California. She used to be a hairdresser there and part of Ashraf Ghani's family. She is related to him. And when Ashraf Ghani was campaigning for presidency in Kabul, she was in Kabul campaigning for him, along with Ataullah Nasib and a few other of these guys who eventually worked for the government. And Mariam Sulaiman Khail is a young woman who could barely speak any Pashto or Dari, but she was campaigning for the president. I don't know what she was doing exactly, but she was on Twitter all day. And then suddenly she obtained a job in government. I don't know what was her first duty. And later on, she got elected as a representative of the Kuchi semi-nomadic Pashtuns in the Afghan parliament. So in Afghanistan, the parliament, very democratic, is divided into different categories. So you have to have a Hindu member of parliament. You have to have at least 20% women in parliament, etc., etc. So also the Kuchis, who are semi-nomadic people and they live spread out across the country, they have designated seats in the parliament for them. And she became a candidate on behalf of the Kuchis because she is from the Sulaiman Khail tribe, and most Sulaiman Khail tribe are originally Kuchis. But this young woman who was born in Fremont, California, and who can barely speak any Pashto or Dari, has never lived in a tent in Afghanistan. She has never tended for cattle, but she was related to President Ashraf Ghani. So she, through corruption, through fraud in election, she became a member of parliament in Afghanistan. And she was very outspoken defender of the regime and a typical Kabul bubble person who...
Pro-PTA?
Yes. She was flying from Kabul to Istanbul and Dubai every weekend to go out shopping. We have friends who saw her in airplanes. Every weekend, our friends who travel back and forth to Afghanistan, they say, every time you fly from Istanbul to Kabul, or from Dubai to Kabul or back and forth, always you see her in the flight, like with her shopping bags. This person is a typical usurper. She usurped the seat in parliament of Kuchis, the semi-nomadic Pashtuns, who are one of the poorest and one of the most, people who have suffered the most in the last 20 years. She is now crying. She is in New Delhi airport and talking to Indian media and talking about how women have no longer any rights in Afghanistan. Now, this explains exactly what was wrong and what has been wrong all along with this government. The whole notion of women's rights and the equality and whatnot is just a joke. Aren't there any Kuchi women from Afghanistan who can participate in election? How come the women like Farida Kuche, who was a very well-respected woman from the Kuchi community, how come she was not able to be re-elected? It was in Senate, by the way, but we have all these hairdressers and beauticians and whatnot coming from Western country, as with Western passports, with American passports, going into Afghanistan and claiming those seats in parliament and spending all weekend going around shopping in Istanbul and in Dubai. And these people are now crying and weeping about women's rights.
There was one video I remember. Do you remember Manzoor Pashtin got arrested in Pakistan for, it wasn't for long, it was like a day or 2 days, right? And she attended this rally, I think it was in Paktia or Khost, and she basically said that she attended this rally, and she's like, what was it? She's like, "Z Mariam Sulaiman Khailium." So I am Mariam Sulaiman Khair. And wait, just give me a second because I'm trying to remember how bad the Pashto was.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
She basically said, I'm from the parliament of the Kochian and Numainda. But Numainda isn't the word for representative in Pashto. Numaida is Dari. The word for representative is Astaze. But and then she went on and she gave the entirety of the speech of why Manzoor Pashtun should be released to a bunch of Afghans in English, about why Pakistan was bad and why it was evil that Manzoor Pashtun had been arrested and why Pakistan was bad. The whole speech was given in English.
Okay. She's very keen on giving speeches.
Osama Qayyum is also noticing she was active in Allahu Akbar campaign.
Yeah, and we're going to see that now. We're going to see that now. Okay, so here's the video of her. Okay, so this
how it started and how it's going.
So these phony people's representatives, these frauds, these people, these usurpers of women's rights and fake representatives of Kuchis and minorities and whatnot, these people, they have spent all these years filling their pockets from donor money, because the whole government was running on donations, on charity from Western countries. They enriched themselves. They have made fortunes from their role in government and everything. And now you see them weeping and crying in New Delhi and whatnot, saying, oh, women have no longer rights, as if she cared about any Afghan women, anyone in the country who was suffering. So good riddance, be gone. We don't want these people anymore. Okay, so let's move on to a different story. We have been talking earlier today about looting and pillaging. We talked about how people have been robbed in Afghanistan, homes have been invaded, and that people who are in Kabul, they are saying that gangs of armed men are going around every, wealthy areas of the city. They enter people's houses. They have fake papers and saying, we are the Taliban, you have a car, you have a gun, you have money, and they take their stuff. But here is the interesting part about this matter, okay? You know that in Afghanistan for the last 20 years, several gangs, criminal groups tied to warlords have been in power, whether they were in the police force or they were in the army. But these criminal gangs they were either wearing uniforms or not, but they were extorting people, they were kidnapping people, they were doing all sorts of things. One of them was even the coach of the women's football team. But these people, everybody in Afghanistan, especially in Kabul, everyone knew who these criminal gangs are, where they're from. For instance, they were either from Udkhil, from my district. There are a few warlords and criminal gangs there, or they were from Paghman. They were related to, the political party of Rasul Sayaf, or they were from north of Kabul, from like Panjshir and other areas. So everyone knew who these criminal gangs are. But what's so interesting about this matter is that as soon as they saw that the government is collapsing in Kabul, that everybody is escaping the city, the government is no longer capable of defending itself. A lot of prominent figures in the security apparatus, etc., they were all running away. At that particular moment, these guys took off their uniforms if they were wearing them, and in most cases, these criminal gangs, they wear a certain type of clothes so that people know who they are. Like, for instance, if they are from Paghman, they have these long kameez skirts, and their trousers are up so you can see almost their shins, and it's a very typical style of clothing where they reveal that they are from Paghman, or they are from Panjshir. They wear those military style uniforms and those Palestinian shawls and pakols because they imitate Ahmad Shah Massoud. So these guys, everyone knew in Kabul, okay, this person belongs to that gang, this person belongs to that gang. Now those guys changed their clothes, dressed up like Taliban, you know, like villagers with turbans and covering their faces, and they started going around people's houses and robbing them and taking people's cars, taking people's possessions, all sorts of things. And we have actually received a video, secretly recorded video via social media of someone who is basically recording a incident where these gangs are robbing people, and I'm going to share that video with you.
I just have a couple of questions before we show that.
Yeah.
So Sabur Ahmad is saying AFGHANEYE is so underrated. Thank you, Sabur. I'm glad that you like it. Just give me a sec. Sangar, we've got a new phenomenon of where is this person? Where
is Ja?
Where Muntasir Naim Polak is asking, where is Fawzia Kufi?
Okay.
And Muhammad Rahman is asking, where is Muhaqqiq? We don't know, unfortunately, where they are. FN Hussein is asking, what is the story with Farzana Kochi?
I'm sorry. Okay. I have no idea what's... yeah, Farzana Kochi is also one of these fake Kochi representatives. But anyways, guys, we're going to switch now to that video. Okay. So here we go.
We got another question.
Yes.
Where is Mohib?
He was in the flight with Ashraf Ghani. He escaped with Ashraf Ghani because...
Have you seen... we need to show the interview of his with the BBC saying he feels more calm in the chaos of Afghanistan than he does in the serenity of London. That needs to be shown.
Okay. Well, if somebody sends the link to me, I will share that video on the live stream. Okay. So now, guys, what you're seeing here is a incident that took place earlier today. It was, as you can see, the sun is about to go down, so it's late afternoon in Kabul. And you see guys who are basically wearing typical village clothes, but with guns, weapons, etc. And they are in a Ranger, a Ford Ranger.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I just read another question. Where is Fawad Ahmad?
Oh, okay. So this Ranger vehicle that you see, that's a military vehicle, okay? So they arrive in a military vehicle but dressed up as Taliban, and they are now robbing people, okay? They're entering people's house. I'm going to play the video. It is being recorded secretly. Okay, that was it. It's a very short clip, but basically what is happening here is that these criminal gangs, they go all around the city and they're robbing people. They take their possessions, and there have been many skirmishes because some people who have guns, they fight back. Now, one of our friends, Abu Bakr Zadran, in Kabul, he has sent a picture of himself. I'm not going to share that because it's private. But anyways, he said that he has a gun at home, and he's now gone out to provide security in his street so that if any of these criminal gangs come, that they can repel them from trying to rob people. So people are taking power, how do you say, matters into their own hands. And I've just seen a message coming from someone who said that a large convoy of Taliban are being sent from the south, and the north of the country to Kabul to secure the city, because there are too many criminal activity going on in the city, and they're trying to prevent all the looting and robbing that is going on. But here's the question, okay? So what is really puzzling me is, let's say you're a criminal in Kabul, and you know that the rest of the country is taken over by Taliban, and you're going to rob cars, guns, etc. Where are you going to take them? Like they stole.
I assume they're still. I sort of guess that they assume that the Taliban's authority is still not established firmly. They're probably taking a bet. But in any case, Sangar, we have an update. There's been a new speech of Mullah Bradar Akhund, and we are being asked to translate it. Play it and translate it.
Okay, you have the link for me?
Yeah, it's in Zmujara group chat. ندید ملگرو سرمو. احمد شاه بابا
پختو ده؟ پختو.
فکر نکنم که فارسی پیرجی.
سیده.
I would also request you to translate it, because it's a bit difficult, the back and forth. But if there's any part, because he speaks with a really thick southern accent, so if there's any part like you struggle with, I'll sort of provide auxiliary support.
The thing is, because I'm playing everything, the audio of videos through the sound card, I can't hear them very well. So you have to do that, okay? Okay, so let me switch. All right.
And we've also been asked, where is General Sadat?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم وبعد وطول أفغانستان مسلمان
I can't hear it that well.
داغ درنو فتح مباركي وايو خصوصا د کابل وطول أفغانستان مسلمان ملت داغ درنو فتح مباركي وايو خصوصا د کابل شاریانو او اوسیدونکو ته او ورپسې خپلو مجاهدینو ته دا توصیه او وړاندیز کوو چې موږ تاسو دغه حال ته ورسېدو چې هغه هیڅ توقع د دې نه کېده چې په دغه رقم به موږ په افغانستان کې کامیابه کېږو.
Okay, pause it there. I would like to the Muslim people of Afghanistan, and especially to the respected residents of Kabul, extend my heartfelt congratulations. And after that, I would like to also congratulate our Mujahideen. And to our Mujahideen, I would like to say that I would like to say or present or this reality that we have succeeded and conquered, because they're using the word futuhat, we have conquered in a way that no one could have possibly expected or predicted.
خدا د الله پاک نصرت او مدد و چې الله پاک دغسې فتوحات او دغسې کامیابیانې چې په دنیا کې یو مثل نشته نن ورځ زموږ تاسې پر لاس باندې راوستلې نو موږ تاسې باید د الله.
This is the help and the inspiration of Allah or God that we have got to this level. We've got to this level where, you know, we've gained or won this conquest.
پاک شکر وایو د الله پاک سره راضي اوسو د الله پاک ته هر وخت په عجز باندې او تکبر او یو غرور راڅخه ونه شي. نو محترم
we are content with the divine decree. We extend we profess our gratefulness to God Almighty. And what is important, I forgot exactly how we phrased it, but we need to avoid falling into the trap of arrogance and haughtiness.
نو موږ تاسې باید د الله پاک شکر وایو د الله پاک سره راضي اوسو د الله پاک ته هر وخت په عجز باندې او تکبر او یو غرور راڅخه ونه شي.
Sorry, so he's saying we should approach God Almighty with humility and humbleness and make sure that we don't have any sort of arrogance within us.
تر مخه چې کوم وخت و هغه دغه نه مسؤلیت موږ تاسو ته نه راجع کېدی لکه اوس ځکه اوس موږ تاسو د امتحان او د ازمایښت وخت راغلی ځکه اوس موږ تاسو په دې باندې مبتلا
The situation and the circumstances which we found ourselves in before, we did not have as much of a responsibility as we do now with this test that we are now faced with.
کېږو ځکه ورځ په ورځ به په دې کې موږ اخته کېږو ځکه چې موږ څنګه د خپل ملت خدمت او د خپل ملت امنیت او د دوی د ژوند د زندګۍ او د آرام او په آینده کې د اوسېدو اطمینان څه رقم ورکولی شو نو ټولو ته
Right now our test is to what did he say again? He basically said that to secure or to ensure the security of. Could you replay that, please, Sangar? I want to translate it verbatim.
اخته کېږو ځکه چې موږ څنګه د خپل ملت خدمت او د خپل ملت امنیت او د دوی د ژوند د زندګۍ او د آرام او په آینده کې د اوسېدو اطمینان څه رقم ورکولی شو نو ټولو ته دا اطمینان ورکوو چې انشاءالله په دې باندې چې لکه څنګه چې موږ ته الله پاک داسې غټ فتوحات را په نصیب کړه نو د آینده دپاره.
So he's saying that we're now confronted with the task of serving our people, of ensuring their security, and making sure that we reassure them. We reassure them as to the serenity and the tranquility of their lives in the future.
د ټول ملت ته موږ دا وینا کوو چې د دوی د امانو او د ښه ژوند د زندګۍ د برابرولو وسطوان تر خپله طاقته پورې دا کوو چې دوی ته دغه د زندګۍ ژوند ور برابر کړو.
So I would like to tell the whole nation that we are committed to, and we will attempt to the best of our ability to make them live safe lives, secure lives, and to basically bring about the circumstances in which to do that. Sayed Haq is asking, he is the new president, right? I really doubt it, because president is the head of a republic, and the Taliban are not a republic. They call themselves an emirate, which means they have an emir, and Mullah Bradar answers to that emir. And that emir is Mawlawi Hibatullah Akhundzadeh. Now I know someone is going to ask in the chat, where is Mawlawi Hibatullah Akhundzadeh? The answer to that is I don't know. But he is the emir of the Taliban, and he's avoided making any public appearances. Mullah Bradar is only the head of the political office, and he answers to Mawlawi Hibatullah. So if the Taliban are insisting on a full transition entirely to their government, then Mullah Bradar will not be the president, and indeed there will be no president. There'll be an emir, which I assume would be Hibatullah Akhundzadeh.
Okay, guys, so now we're going to switch to a video that has been recorded inside an airplane in Kabul a couple of hours ago. We said that the rich and wealthy people are all trying to escape. I tweeted about it several days ago, that they are trying to sell their properties, that they are trying to sell even their furniture, everything, and they're trying to escape the country. But now we see how they are all rushing into airport and trying to board the plane. This is recorded from inside the airplane, so here we go. So people are trying to board the plane while the plane is already filled. And some of the passengers who are inside the plane, they're saying, namone, namone. So it means don't allow these people to enter. Don't allow them to enter the airplane. So basically, the guys who have already obtained a seat in the airplane, they don't want anybody else to enter the airplane and escape with them, which sort of shows the mentality of what kind of people we're dealing with. The absolute majority, the 99.999% of the people in Afghanistan, they cannot afford to run away. They don't have visas, they don't have passports, they don't even, they don't have the means to just pick up their bags and just run away. But these people who can, this is their mentality. They're already sitting in the airplane, and other people who are trying to force themselves into the airplane, they're saying, don't allow these people to enter. So you see at the end of the video, some people managed to force themselves into the airplane. Again, very disturbing. I must say, I feel really, you know, people are making the analogy and saying this is the Saigon moment of Kabul, because in Saigon, the former capital of South Vietnam, after the Americans left, everybody was trying to board the plane and leave with the Americans. And now they say that this is a similar scenario. I would say that the similarity or dissimilarity is not so much of an importance. It's not relevant. What's relevant is that this reveals the despair, the loss of confidence and morale, the fear of people. And many of these people are genuinely scared that they will be targets of retribution by the Taliban, that they might become targets. But at the same time, we also hear what is going on in Kabul. There are gangs of criminals robbing people, rich people. For example, these people that we are seeing now boarding the airplane, these are the wealthy people who are trying to save their lives, because they could either become targeted by the Taliban or they can be targeted by these criminal gangs. But this is basically what is going on in Kabul right now. Waleed, you look like you have news for us.
I don't. I'm just checking through Twitter, and yeah, it's a bit of a mess. Just a lot of insults towards the Kabul bubble.
Yes, and we have another video for you guys. Also something that was okay. Somebody has. Okay, so we have an English announcement that is we're asked. Someone tweeted and asked us to share this. I'm just going to verify if that is correct. Okay, because this message, if it's authentic, then we will share it, but we just need confirmation. Before we switch to that message, I wanted to share another video with you guys. So while we are here discussing security situation in Kabul and the fact that there have been some reports of crimes, etc., we are also seeing that people are complaining. They're sending Taliban representatives and their security or their commanders and everything. They were sending them messages and they're pleading with them to prevent robberies and looting. So in response to all the chaos and insecurity in Kabul and the absence of rule of law, now we have just received a video message from the Taliban that they are saying that they have deployed special forces from Logar. So these are the Taliban.
Afghanistan, the Islami Imarat.
No, this one is this is a different one. So let's move on to this video. Okay. So this is recorded inside Kabul city a few moments ago.
MashaAllah, Alhamdulillah, the Afghanistan, the Islami Imarat, قد لوګر قطعه چې کابل ته پیرنده اوس دستي داخله سوله او د کابل امنیت په ډېر نږدې وخت کې انشاءالله ونیسي دا د افغانستان د اسلامي امارات د لوګر له ذریعه او استشهادي کنډکونو قطعات دي الحمدلله ماشاءالله چې په ډېر لوړ مرام سره د هېواد ساتلو لپاره د کابل پلازمینې ارګ ښار ته داخل شول الحمدلله ماشاءالله.
Okay guys, so this square that you're seeing right now, this is Pashtunistan Square. This is a very historic major square in Kabul, inside the city, and it is very close to the presidential palace. And this whole long column of vehicles, they have just arrived from Logar. They are the units of the Taliban who have been doing a lot of fighting in south of Kabul. Now they have been deployed to secure the city and prevent these gangs, etc. So. You know what's so ironic about this video is that this is close to Serena Hotel in Kabul, and that's a hotel where the Taliban conducted terrorist attacks a few years ago. And now they are there to provide security. You know, it's like being in some sort of... And those are the iconic 4-meter tall cement walls around buildings in Kabul that you see in the background. Those walls were built there so that they could prevent suicide attacks. And the guy in the video, he's now saying that these units that have just entered Kabul to provide security, they are istishhadi, meaning these guys are the people who were also blowing themselves up, the units of Taliban who did suicide attacks. And now you see the wall created here to prevent suicide attacks, and in front of it we see a vehicle coming from Logar, from Taliban unit, who, according to this guy, the Talib who recorded this video, these guys are istishhadi.
MashaAllah, مجاهدين حركات بحال كي ترسو غار ماني قزمي شو كل الارك صدا الارك بفراخ كشمان الاسلامي امارات مجاهدين شتون لري الاسلامي امارات مركزي حلقي مسؤولين حتى.
Okay, so the old men that you saw here, they are responsible for the central مركزي
الاسلامي امارات مركزي حلقي مسؤولين.
The مركزي حلقي مسؤولين. So the central circle, the people who are responsible for the central circle. So
I guess that's a military division of the Taliban, in which Logar would be central.
So they are now rallying near the presidential palace, and from that point they will spread out across the city and start. What's the gazma in English? What was the word for gazma?
It's not a word we really use. I actually don't know.
Yeah, so they are going to patrol the city, and provide security. Okay, so that was a message we received moments ago, and this was a result of many pleas from the citizens in Kabul. Many people complained. They said, first people said, don't enter the city because we don't want any fighting. We don't want any urban warfare. I think it was in last night's stream when we said that Sami Sadat was appointed as, General Sami Sadat was appointed as the guy who needs to assume responsibility for securing the city. And we said that that's a very dumb decision because that guy was responsible for destruction of Lashkargah and that many people have died. And many other experts and commentators said that appointing Sami Sadat for security in Kabul means that the government wants to prepare itself for urban warfare. And urban warfare in Kabul can result in thousands of deaths because it's a very densely populated city, and that would be a catastrophe. But alhamdulillah, that didn't happen. So no urban warfare. So we have to be very grateful that that didn't happen. However, we have had an entire day of looting and robbing in the city. And people said, okay, so what are we going to do now? Earlier in the other stream, we discussed how the Taliban have announced that, well, initially we didn't want to enter the city, but now we have to enter the city. So now that they are in the city, there are 6 to 7 million people living in Kabul, and they were there with a couple of units, so they were not able to provide any security. And then what happened is that moments ago they said we're going to deploy extra troops. So now they have sent extra people in the city. So we don't know what's going to happen over the course of this night. We don't know if there's going to be any fighting. I hope not. I hope that there's no fighting. And I hope that the robbing and pillaging stops, because I also received another message from a friend who lives in Kabul, and he said that it is dark right now in Kabul. It's nighttime, so nobody knows anybody. Okay, so people don't know who is who, but people are knocking on your door and they say, we are from the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, open the door. And if they don't open, they force themselves into people's houses and they take everything and they rob people. Now, yeah, so this is a very scary night in Kabul. I think people are terrified. I assume that very few people will actually fall asleep tonight. To be honest, it is now quite late here as well, but I don't think that I can sleep.
Aslan, I'm going to cut you off there. Aslan Rasul is saying, check the video by Wars on the Brink on Kabul airport shooting. Gunshots in Kabul airport. That is apparently happening right now.
Wars on the Brink. Yes, I know that account. Oh, there's total panic in Kabul airport. Okay, so the shooting video. Okay, I think the last one, it's the last one. Yeah, okay, let's take this one. And by the way, the Taliban have taken control of the national television, and there's some imam speaking on air.
It's a good question. What is going on in Panjshir and where is Ahmed Massoud?
Okay.
Apparently we're hearing reports
You know,
that troops have been deployed from Kapisa into Panjshir.
Yeah. All right. So here's the video.
این داخل میدان خواب گوش کنه برادر یه رب وحشته که فعلا به کابل موجوده
Women and children.
زن و مرد پیر و جوان همگی بالا بچه کیه؟ چی گفته؟ چی گفته؟ برادر این مردم کجا میرن؟ نه به جدی این میگه هر کس پرسان میکنن مردم کجا میرن؟ نیروهای امنیتی این مردم زن و مرد داخل شدن دیگه نمیفهمم. این داخل میدان هوایی بین المللی حامد کرزی دیگه جوان سپاس.
Okay, so what the guy who is recording the video is saying that this is inside the airport. What you see, this is the main gate of Kabul airport, the Beymaru road. It's a straight road that goes straight into the airport, and after the gate, the front gate, then there is a round square. This is just near the round square, and these people are, they don't even have their bags, they don't even have their clothes. They have just stood up and marched towards the airport and hoping that they can enter the airport and escape the country. And you can see these are families, these are people with small children, and they look like normal average citizens, not the very rich and powerful people, but the common people of Kabul, people who live in Beymaru, in some parts of Mikrorayan and Charqala, in those areas near the airport. But yeah, so they all stormed the airport and they're trying to escape. Very, very distressing to see that.
Brother AYK is saying, do you know of the commando division in Rishkhor? Are the troops still inside the compound or have they handed it over? Do you have any information specific to that, Sangar?
No, I have no idea. I know that there were like thousands and thousands of troops stationed in Rishkhor. But apparently most of those areas in the southwest of Kabul and west of Kabul, they have all been vacated by security forces. Early in the morning I heard something like that. But anyway, so you know what's so disturbing about this video is that a lot of my relatives live in that area. It's quite possible that some of my nieces and nephews are among these people. And I haven't spoken to a lot of them. My father called everybody earlier today and he said that he couldn't reach them because they don't have internet connection, but their phone lines are also dead. So you cannot call them on their regular phone number. So if they don't have internet, they also don't have regular mobile phone signal. And yeah, in the past, years ago, people in Kabul still used to have landlines. There were a few people who had landlines, but one of my aunts, she used to have a landline, but she moved a couple of years ago to another part of the city, and I don't think she's using landline anymore. Last time we used...
Where are the headquarters of ANDSF right now? I don't even think such a thing as ANDSF exists anymore.
No.
Quite frankly, not as an organized institution. Mohammed Awar, you're living in Europe for years, promoted the Taliban. Fair enough, if that's your opinion, it is what it is. And we're hearing that Amrullah Saleh is coming back with a tank division from Tajikistan, rolling over the border as we speak.
Really?
Apparently so.
Okay, so who provided him with the tanks?
Potentially he took them from the... Oh, it's a joke apparently. Come on, guys. Let's not crack jokes like that, please.
No. Let's just entertain that idea. Let's just say if he apparently he did say he will not give up.
Yeah, I don't know. But the thing is that we don't actually know what's going on. We're not reading the news as it unfolds because we're discussing the news as it unfolds.
Oh man! Oh no! This is terrible. You know, Amrullah Saleh, when he was scared when the rockets landed on the day of Eid, do you remember that? He was scared of the explosion and he grabbed his private parts, and everybody was making fun of him on Facebook, right? Then he posted a picture of Pakistani capitulation to Indians to troll the Pakistanis. Now, apparently, Pakistanis are trolling Amrullah Saleh again by bringing up his post where he was ridiculing Pakistanis and saying, hey, Amrullah, look. Hey, everyone, please tag Amrullah Saleh and remind him that his army has surrendered 75,000 fighters. Shame on you. So now he decided as a vice president to go and engage trolls, and now the trolls are hitting back at him. Very embarrassing.
Yeah, there's no point even commenting on it, to be honest. He and the trolls they deserve each other. In any case, Sangar, we now know that those political figures in Afghanistan, Ahmad Zia, Ahmed-Waleed Massoud, Qanuni, Mir Rahman Rahmani, these guys have actually been invited to Islamabad by the Pakistani government. Now, let's talk about this, right? And I want to hear the thoughts of everyone that's watching. What are we supposed to make of that?
Okay, so guys in the chat.
Because here's my view. Okay, here is my view. We know that the Pakistanis always wanted a negotiated settlement. They didn't want a military conquest of Afghanistan, of Kabul, by the Islamic Emirate or the Taliban, because that would pose problems for Pakistan. Pakistan knows that the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, i.e. the Taliban, has ties with the TTP or elements of the TTP. We've discussed the TTP before. The TTP was the Pakistani Taliban, but they were different from the Afghan Taliban in the sense that they were an umbrella movement and they were much more prone to factionalism. Okay? And some of those factions have ties with the Afghan Taliban. Some TTP brigades, fighters, commanders fought in Afghanistan for years under the general leadership of the Afghan Taliban. Some of them sought refuge and others defected to Daesh. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we know that the TTP leader, Nur-Wali Massoud, came out and essentially said, we want tribal autonomy. We want autonomy for the tribal areas of Pakistan. And we want in the tribal areas to implement the Sharia as we see fit. Okay, so that is one aspect as to why Pakistan or GHQ doesn't want to have full-on military conquest of Afghanistan. Now, second of all, is the fact that, like you mentioned earlier, if the Afghan Taliban could defeat the Americans, take over the country, it would inspire like-minded people in Pakistan who would say, hey, if they could do it there against the Americans, why can't we do it over here in Pakistan? And Pakistan's army amongst religious circles is sort of subject to ridicule for it generally being very British in its orientation, or being very secular in its outlook, or for just generally being Machiavellian, right? So we know that, right? But at the same time, the Pakistanis have good relations with the Taliban. They can get from the Taliban some sort of assurance that the Durand Line will not become the source of instability for Pakistan going forward. They know that the Afghan Taliban are not going to allow India to use Afghan soil against Pakistan. But now that we could say, for example, that this invitation was given, let's say, 1 or 2 days ago. And 1 or 2 days ago, the situation was very fluid. We didn't know that the Taliban would basically be in the Ark. Last night, when we were talking, we didn't know that Taliban would tonight be in the Ark in the presidential palace, right? So, obviously, if this invitation was given, it could be rescinded. And during the peace process, the Pakistanis invited Pedram, They invited Gulbuddin Hekmatyar. They invited the Taliban. They spoke to Dr. Abdullah. Imran Khan visited President Ashraf Ghani. And that was all done with the understanding that the Pakistanis were trying to maintain channels of communication with all relevant stakeholders in Afghanistan, right? It makes sense. But now those relevant stakeholders have all fled, or they're now invited to Pakistan, the largest conglomerate of them. What are we supposed to make of this?
Waleed, if there are no questions, I want to repeat something that we sort of alluded to earlier today in the this morning in the live stream. What I basically try to explain is that yes, Pakistanis have supported the Taliban for many years, but they are not in favor of an emirate in Afghanistan. So, you know, it's a very calculated, policy by the Taliban, by the Pakistanis, to now invite all the parties who are opposed to the Taliban to Islamabad to create some sort of opposition, a political opposition backed by Pakistan against the Taliban in Kabul. And this was something that you could almost predict in advance that this is going to happen, that they will, in case ever the Taliban take over, the Pakistanis are not just going to allow them to run the country. So this may be the moment where we see the whole relationship between Pakistan and Taliban shift from sort of support now to opposition, and supporting the opposition to the Taliban. Because yes, the Pakistanis have always maintained their ties with these Jamiat Islami and Hizb Wahdat and all these parties. So it makes sense that they would do that now. But do you expect that these parties, with the help of Pakistan, can become a militant opposition, armed opposition, or do you think that they will stick to just being a political opposition?
I think wealth mellows men. I think wealth softens, mellows men. And we spoke about Ustad Atta and General Dostum. Both of them are men that have carved their names for being militarily formidable, right? I know we mock Marshal Dostum now. Maybe his marshal label or medal will be rescinded by a new government, but he was known in the 80s as a brutal commander. And that's why Dr. Najib relied on him. Ustad Atta was a prominent commander of Jamiat-e-Islami. But here's the thing, is that wealth doesn't just soften men, and it doesn't just neuter them. What it does is that it also, over the course, listen, a lot of the times we talk about the Taliban's uprising against the Americans and the occupation, so on and so forth. And one of the reasons which we pin the insurgency down to, not incorrectly, is the American troop presence, foreign occupation. It drives people towards insurgency. But now here's the thing. The occupation was primarily or overwhelmingly concentrated in the following: Helmand, Kandahar, Zabul, Orozgan, Paktia, Paktika, Khost, Logar, Kabul, Laghman, Nangarhar, Kunar, right? And Herat, right? And you had some detachments of troops in Mazar Sharif, in Qunduz, etc. But in places like rural Jozjan, in places like rural Faryab, in places like rural Balkh, Saripul, you don't really have much international troop presence. You don't really see much of a foreign occupation if you lived there. Which begs the question, why did so many men in their droves, young men, join the Taliban? Well, we could say religious preaching, brainwashing, whichever way you see it, but you could also say government neglect, corruption, right? Now, who was the government in those areas? People like Atta Mohammad Nur, people like Dostum, right? So over the course of the last 20 years, whilst Dostum and Ata Mohamed Noor had strong bases and constituencies in Jawzjan, in Balkh respectively, and in the areas surrounding those places, they became cut off from the local rural people, because the local rural people saw that actually these guys are just running a racket. They're multi-billionaires, but actually I'm not seeing any of this, which drove young people to the Taliban. Similarly, the other people, I think it was a Khalili or Muhaqiq, how much clout do they really have in their in their original constituencies at the moment? I wouldn't say they have a lot. So what I suspect is that the Pakistanis do want, and I think the symbolism here can't be understated, right? The white flag, emirate, amir, these are things that would obviously make Pakistan nervous. So Pakistan, in my view, or the people making the decisions in Pakistan, obviously some will say it's the elected government, other people will say actually it's GHQ, right? They're going to be looking at this and say, look, we can't really fight against the Talib predominant government. However, we can tone it down, we can dilute it. And what I suspect these guys who are going there, the Masouds, etc., they're basically going to be besieging and saying, hey, despite the fact that we've spent 30 years complaining about Punjab and Punjabi and ISI, we now have a shared interest. That shared interest is preventing an emboldened Afghan Taliban, right? That's how I see it.
Okay, Waleed, one of our friends, one of our guys from Kabul who I've been talking to for more than a decade now, he has sent a disturbing message to me earlier today. He said that just got news, my father-in-law almost got shot by a bunch of thugs taking advantage of the situation. And I asked him, where did this happen? And he said, in Sarai Shamali. So it's an area in Kabul. And basically, his father-in-law got into, altercation with...
Whereabouts in Shawani?
Sarai Shamali. Sarai Shamali. So that's the big that square with all those there's a market with all those vegetables, etc. So that's in that particular area this happened. Meanwhile, we receive more messages of crime and disturbance. We also received a new video. So apparently,
but there's another thing, because people are responding to my comments on Pakistan and the Taliban, etc. People are saying that maybe the Pakistanis want to help the Taliban set up a legitimate government. The West won't recognize the government if it's entirely the Taliban, and there needs to be power sharing. I get that, and if you've been listening to the live streams over the last couple of days, I've repeatedly been in favor of an interim government, of a transitional authority, and power sharing, right? We've always been in favor of that. But now here's the question. Power share with who? With who? Ashraf Ghani just left. His entire, all of his minions just left. Ustad Atta and Dostum are in Uzbekistan. Ismail Khan has surrendered. Power share what with a couple of people? Masoud Khail, Mir Rahman Rahmani, those aren't political parties anymore. Those are personalities. They're not political parties. If there were to be power sharing, it would have to be with people that were previously neutral in this conflict, that are not Taliban, but that are not Jamiat-e-Islami, because there is no such thing as Jamiat-e-Islami anymore. They've got 4 different leaders and they're all in different places. And Ashraf Ghani's government has basically just stuffed 3 jeeps full of dollars and ran away. And basically posted poorly written Facebook statuses
with Google Translate.
This is what is really irritating me. The only people that we have left now are Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, Hamid Karzai, Dr. Abdullah. Everyone is left.
I must say, respect for those guys, really.
Yeah, respect
for staying in Kabul despite all the threats and insecurity. Dr. Abdullah, I've criticized this man for 20 years, but right now I say, Dr. Abdullah, the Narbachai. He
Same thing. Same thing with Hekmatyar. Like I said, my family were in Hizb Islami. He absolutely screwed up in the 90s, but at least now he's doing something okay, right? But here's the thing: power sharing doesn't take place with three people of different political parties, right? So what you have now, what you had were what was previously known as Jamiyat-e-Islami. Let's look at who is in Jamiyat-e-Islami. Abdullah is in Kabul. Ustad Atta is in Uzbekistan. He fled with Dostum. Salahuddin Rabbani, Ahmad Zia Massoud, Ahmed-Waleed Massoud, Yunus Qanuni are all going to Islamabad, right? Abdul Hamid Khorasani, who was basically the hired thug of Jamiyat-e-Islami in the last 20 years, now calls himself Imarati, right?
Yeah.
Who is Jamiyat anymore? Where is Jamiyat? Amrullah Saleh is missing and tweeting that he will never share a ceiling with the Taliban. Okay? Hizb Islami, okay, is in Kabul right now, as personified by its leader, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar. Okay, power sharing with Hizb Islami. Hamid Karzai was always nominally independent. The constituency that was carved out by Ashraf Ghani has basically just packed up its bags and left. So we don't really have much chance of a credible power sharing government.
Okay, so let's switch to latest video we received of nighttime in Kabul. So this is one of the many checkposts that have been set up inside the city by those special units of Taliban. You can see that they're wearing uniforms now. Okay, so a little bit context here. What has happened in the last few moments in Kabul is that there were many reports of looting, robbing, crimes, and criminal gangs. And everybody was very concerned that this can cause a lot of casualties. So the Taliban said that we will impose a curfew in the night. So now nobody's allowed to travel, go anywhere, and they are basically they have checkpoints all across the city at all major crossings and squares, and they check vehicles, and they have sent a message to all citizens of Kabul saying that they should not open the door for anyone. Even if people knock on their door and they say, we are Taliban, we are the new government and new authority, they shouldn't open the door for anyone, because they said that the Taliban are instructed to not enter anybody's house. So this is the current situation in Kabul. Meanwhile, I have also seen a video message where someone's saying that in Kabul there are armed gangs fighting one another. People see armed gangs, people dressed up like Taliban, they're fighting one another. So nobody knows when normal citizens in Kabul watch those groups fighting with each other, they don't know, are they Taliban fighting amongst each other? Or are they just criminal gangs fighting with each other? Or they're just normal citizens fighting against the Taliban? People don't know. They don't know what's going on. They just see guys in Afghan clothes with shawls and turbans, and they just either fighting physically with each other, or they're shooting at each other. So
I wanna answer some of the questions I got with regard to power sharing in Pakistan, inviting these old school veterans. So Freha Amjad asks, what could be the blowback of Pakistan supporting an opposition? What would it mean for Afghan-Pakistan-Taliban relations? The meaningful opposition that the Pakistanis could support would probably be Daesh. They would be probably the most formidable opposition that Pakistan could support. But obviously, supporting Daesh comes with its drawbacks, and that is that they're not above attacking you as well. And on top of that, she asks, what does it mean for Pakistan-Taliban relations? Well, it would mean that those relations would suffer, and that the Taliban could also hurt Pakistan as well in the form of TTP. Now, with regard to the TTP, what's traditionally happened is that the Afghan Taliban have tried to play a mediating role between the Pakistani army, Pakistani government, and the TTP, and basically try to convince the TTP instead to come and fight in Afghanistan. But if they sort of enjoy, and we know they enjoy relations with the TTP, and the TTP have fought in Afghanistan, they could just as easily turn their guns towards Pakistan, and that would obviously not be a situation that would benefit either Pakistan or Afghanistan. Now, there's another thing. Bilal Sarwari has me blocked on Twitter, but someone has sent me his tweet. Part of the agreement was that President Ghani would join the transition of power ceremony inside the palace. Instead, Ashraf Ghani and his senior aides left the country. Palace employees were told to leave. The palace was empty. Wow.
Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. So, Bilal Sarwari reports, part of the agreement was that President Ashraf Ghani would join the transition of power ceremony inside the palace. Instead, President Ghani and his senior aides left the country. Palace employees were told to leave. The palace was empty. Under the deal, Hamid Karzai and Abdullah were supposed to go to Qatar and talk to the Taliban. But after the president left the country, the trip to Doha was cancelled. This was sabotage of the transition.
But in his statement, Ashraf Ghani said no such thing.
In his statement, Ashraf Ghani was basically saying that the Taliban were going around threatening to shoot up the entirety of Kabul if he didn't go away. Someone is asking me, why was I blocked by Bilal Sarwari? I was blocked because he mistranslated a clip of Pashto being spoken by a Taliban commander. I corrected him and I got blocked. Such is life.
Yeah, so guys, what's happening right now is that the biggest issue right now is no longer what happened during the day with all the politicians, etc. That's not an issue. Right now, the most urgent issue is security in Kabul. That's what most people are concerned with right now. People are most concerned with the fact that there have been criminal gangs robbing people. There are some people who have been injured. I have seen at least one case of someone being killed. So that's the biggest concern. And I am trying
so Sangar's basically going to update us on the latest security situation in Kabul, and I will answer some of the questions that we're getting in the chat.
If you just do the questions from the chat, I will try to get more details about what's going on with regards to security, okay?
So Moramasa asks, will the Taliban work with China against TIP, which are the Turkestan Islamic Movement Uyghurs of Xinjiang? I don't believe that they will work with China. During their previous emirate, Mullah Omar didn't allow the Uyghur militants to attack China from Afghan territory. However, he also didn't extradite any Chinese he didn't extradite any of those militants to China. Why? Okay, should also keep it. Yeah, so someone is saying that we should also bear in mind the economic aspect with regards to Pakistan and Afghanistan and China. Government led by Imran Khan basically wants Afghanistan peaceful so the economy can be can go forward. I agree with that. Osman asks, why is there so much Pashtun hate on Twitter from Afghans? I don't know, man. You should probably go ask them. I'm just vibing.
Here on AFGHANEYE, we at least can say honestly that we do not engage in any sort of hatred towards Pashtun. We have nothing against
We take
Pashtuns.
that very seriously.
Yes.
Okay. JZ says, I like your Pashto, Orc. Thank you. I don't know where you heard my Pashto, but I appreciate it. Sabur Ahmad is saying TTP is supported by RAW, Research and Analysis Wing, which is Indian intelligence. Yes, that was the case. They were also, to some extent, supported by Afghan intelligence, but there was a bit of an overlap between being supported by Indian intelligence, working with the Afghan Taliban, etc. A Khan asks, Salam, just a question or thought. How frustrating is it for you guys to uncover what's happening in Afghanistan, considering Western whitewashing of what happened in Afghanistan? Is very frustrating. It's very frustrating because when you speak to your relatives in Afghanistan, you find that the terms and the values and the concerns that they hold are systematically and deliberately ignored. It is very frustrating, and it's extremely frustrating that the coverage was sort of ignored for 2 decades, but now that the Taliban are in the cities, suddenly we're told that there's some sort of genocide going on. But fear not, because now we have the Afghan Eye, and we have you guys watching us, and that is the entirety of the reason as to why our platform exists, for Afghans to talk about Afghanistan, to present Afghanistan to the world in terms that Afghans understand, without having to dance around ever-shifting Western taboos. Seham Jannati says, are the Taliban imposing the Hanafi madhab on everyone? I would say that the Taliban they're not forcing people to convert to the Hanafi madhab, but the society and politics that they envision is based very strongly on the Hanafi madhab. And that could be seen as imposing or imposition, or that could just be seen as their ideal model. B Train says, how are the ties between Taliban and China? Still relatively distant. Will China build up infrastructure to influence the Taliban? Potentially. What's Taliban doing about all of the panic in Kabul? Well, as we saw, they're deploying their forces from Ghazni and Logar. And I can't believe I'm saying they're deploying their forces, because that is technically our army right now, Sangar. Those are Afghan forces.
What a crazy situation. Until this morning, we had a standing army, we had NDS, we had special forces, we had an air force, and now we have
Taliban are our police force and our army. Bloody hell, that is insane. And you guys have been with us, watching us discuss and analyze it for the last couple of days, including for hours today. Zach Aro asks, will this have any impact in Kashmir issue? We answered this yesterday. We don't believe it will. Osama Qayyum asks, how much Indian influence is on the Afghan youth? Is it through movies or student visas only? I wouldn't say there's that much cultural influence. I think that's been decreasing for a couple of years. But yeah, student visas also play a role. I would say the role of Bollywood has been, decreasing for years. Sayed Haq, it's really messed up that American Muslims are calling Taliban imposing Islamic law barbaric and begging the US instead. It is, I guess, it just depends on your inclination. Sohaib Migrawi, thank you for joining us, asks, what do you think of a potential future coalition government? So I think you missed it earlier. And my question was, coalition government with who? The sitting government unfortunately fled. The other stakeholders have also fled, or they're invited to go to Pakistan already. And that is where we are. What can the Taliban do to reduce the cost of living, employ sound economics? And that is an entirely different topic, which will take hours to get into. How likely is it that the UN steps in if mass panic continues now in Kabul? I don't think they will, and even if they did, I don't think they'd be able to offer anything. This is the problem of domestic crime. Will the Taliban be able to catch and punish the criminals robbing and killing tonight? I would probably say so, yes. Are Western journalists overstating the importance of Western countries' recognition of the Taliban regime? How much will the situation change if China recognizes the Taliban regime? I think they are. And the reason is they think they have leverage, or Western countries have leverage over a potential future government in Afghanistan in terms of economy. But What they're ignoring is that Afghanistan's economy would grow exponentially if security were to be established and it attracted investment, which would mean that it would be less reliant on aid. Obviously, if they went and then sort of tried to sanction a Taliban government, that would obviously not be optimal, and it would damage the Afghan economy. How long Taliban can operate without U.S. equipment or U.S. support? Well, they've been doing that for 20 years, so I would say they'd probably be able to do it for quite a lot longer, unless you mean as a government, in which case it depends on a variety of factors. Do you guys speak or understand Urdu too? I understand Urdu. I can speak it
speaking
very
of Urdu,
badly.
let me try to read Mufti Taqi Usmani's Urdu message. काबुल में तालिबान के पर अमन दाखिले आम माफ़ी और अमन के ज़मानत ने फ़तह मक्का के याद ताज़ा की और दुनिया भर के टेक्नोलॉजी से लेस ताकतों का Sorry, that's my attempt of reading Urdu.
For those who don't know, Mufti Taqi Usmani is probably one of the most, if not the most senior scholar in the Islamic world at the moment. He is a pioneer in the field of sort of studying Islamic finance, Islamic economics. And what he is saying is that the Taliban's conquest of Kabul reminds him of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's conquest of Mecca. Those are his words. Now, coming from a mainstream, highly respected scholar, I don't think there is any other bigger endorsement of the Taliban. I don't even think if President Biden came out and said something like that the Taliban would enjoy that endorsement as much as this.
This is a very big stamp of approval.
That is a big statement, because the Taliban are Deobandis, and Mufti Taqi Usmani is the leading Deobandi scholar in the world. Someone mentioned Hanafi madhab. Mufti Taqi Usmani is one of the leading scholars in the Hanafi madhab.
No,
so that is a very
I think that yes, he is probably the biggest Hanafi scholar at the moment. But yes. Oh, this is very interesting. You want to see this, okay? So Taqi Usmani, I'm going to put this entire thing.
That is a big endorsement, man.
Yeah, but read the first reply. That's even funnier. Okay. So Taqi Usmani is not just the biggest Hanafi scholar. He is also one of leading scholars around the world who is regularly consulted by scholars from other parts of the world. So even the Standing Committee of Scholars in Saudi Arabia consults him on various matters, especially economy. So he is like... Well, yeah, it's very difficult to explain for non-Muslims especially, but this man is a very big legal jurist, etc. In Islamic world. He has done a lot.
He is a pioneer in a field like Islamic finance and economics.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so
we've been asked, where is Sayaf Saib?
Yeah, I think this is going to be, for our live streams, this is going to be the standard line. Where is so-and-so?
Last night it was, will the Taliban do this and will they do that? And we said, maybe you guys should start asking Zabiullah Mujahid. And now we've become Google Maps. Everyone is asking us where all of these figures are. But yeah, can you are you loading up the tweets?
Yes. Okay, This is going to be very funny. Okay. This is going to be very funny. I'm going to just send it to you on WhatsApp so that it's easier for you to read, because I know that senior citizens like yourself might have trouble with reading. Okay, so here we go. So here is the tweet of Taqi Usmani. Taqi Usmani has tweeted, and I'm reading the English translation of Google Translate. The Taliban's peaceful entry into Kabul, the amnesty and the guarantee of peace reminded me of the conquest of Mecca and signaled to the technologically advanced powers around the world that no power can stand before the power of faith, provided it is ready for any sacrifice. I wish we and the world of Islam could learn from this miracle. Wow.
Guys, this is the biggest endorsement that the Taliban could dream of. This is a massive, massive endorsement. Like, wow. And I remember a couple of years ago when Mawlawi Hibatullah Khanzada, the Emir of the Taliban, came out with a statement and he was praising, that was endorsed by Mufti Taqi Usmani, who said that he liked the compassionate tone of the what's it called, of the Eid message rather. That was an endorsement, but I'll be honest with you, I never thought I'd see the day where they get an endorsement like this. This is I don't even know what to say, man. Wow.
But now let's look at the tweet below. That's an Afghan imam in America, Hasib Noor, who is a student of Hatem al-Auni. And Hatem al-Auni is a Saudi scholar who is a revisionist, so what happened in Saudi Arabia before the Saudi state was created, you had Muhammad ibn Saud, the tribal leader, endorsed by Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. They tried to create a state, a rebellious state against the Ottoman Empire, but after many attempts, those people managed to create the Saudi state. And that state was supported by students and followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab for decades. However, in the last couple of years, since Muhammad ibn Salman has become the how do you say, the prince,
the crown prince,
the crown prince, Saudi Arabia has decided to become a more secular, more progressive nation. And the state is trying to break away its relationship with the ultra-conservative followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and they're endorsing more liberal, more progressive and revisionist figures such as Hatem al-Auni. And this Afghan American Imam, Hasib Noor, is a fanatic follower of that person, Hatem al-Auni. He keeps promoting him on his website, Legacy or something. And this man, he is now saying that he's responding to Taqi Usmani in English, saying, "You are responsible, Sheikh Taqi, to be an independent scholar and hold accountable Taliban you have open dialogue with. Their claims of amnesty are already seeing extrajudicial."
I think he's talking about extrajudicial killing in Kabul.
Yeah, I think he's, yeah. You must emphasize reform of absolutist intolerance ideology and welcome valid scholarly differences. Now, we have seen the statement of Taqi Usmani, one of the biggest scholars around the world, endorsing the Taliban, and we see an American imam, an Afghan, who is a follower of the Saudi revisionist scholar Hatem al-Auni. Now, what is so interesting here is that the Afghan scholar, he is saying that you must emphasize reform of absolutist intolerance ideology and welcome valid scholarly differences. So, but what he's saying is that the Taliban are absolutist and they're intolerant and they do not accept valid scholarly differences.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's a theological debate that I'm not really interested in getting into, but the bit about extrajudicial killing I don't think holds any sort of relevance here because we've just established that those are criminal gangs. But yeah, anyways, that is once again the biggest endorsement I've ever seen of the Taliban. And I know a lot of people watching here are non-Muslims, So they're going to be like, who's this Mufti Taqi Usmani guy? But if you know about the Taliban and you know the regional dynamics and the religious dynamics, that is, that's a big endorsement. Murama said, will the Taliban work with China against Uyghurs? I've already answered that. So just give me a second. Someone is asking us, what is our opinion on Sheikh Imran Hussein? Unfavorable.
I think he means Imran Nazar Hussein of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you really want to know?
No. I think we'll get into that. More progress. Will the Taliban? The Taliban have said that they're going to get rid of the drug trade, but we'll see how that goes. What if the Taliban surprise the world when it comes to human, women, and minority rights, and minority rights? Have they surprised us all? I don't know really what's being asked. Apparently, there's videos of Mohib's house. Nadim is saying, "What's a lie, Ahmed?" Nadim is saying, "Ahmed, that's a lie. The Taliban will never let go of the drug trade." Maybe, maybe not. I guess we'll see. They committed to it, and I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not Mystic Meg. I can't predict for certain that things will happen. I'm just going by what's been committed to. That's basically that. Okay, there's apparently a new video of Kabul airport and Mohib's house. Can you send us the link for that if that is true? What do you think will be the Taliban's top foreign policy priority? That's a brilliant question. Sangar, I'm going to let you answer that.
Sorry?
What do you think will be the Taliban's top foreign policy priority?
Removing the removing the Taliban from the UN blacklists. Okay, that's their main priority, because Taliban leaders are still blacklisted and still considered as a terrorist organization. And then official recognition of their government as the legitimate government of Afghanistan by international community. I would say those are their two main priorities at the moment.
But that's a partisan priority. That's relating to them specifically, okay? But as the Afghan government, what will their priority be?
I would say the same answer, because if they are the Afghan government, they need to be a government that is internationally recognized and that its leaders are not blacklisted, because they can't do anything if their leaders are blacklisted and their government is not recognized. What we will have is a repetition of the disastrous 5 years of Taliban government in the 1990s.
Okay, Sahib Mikrawi is asking, are the Taliban still interested in joining the next Olympics? The plot twist, I hope so. There's a bit of a discussion going on in the chat with regard to opium. What I will say is this, is that opium is the largest source of income in the Afghan economy. Both the Taliban and the Afghan government, which no longer exists, which I'm still getting used to, officials at the highest level were involved in the drug trade. So with regard to whether the Taliban will cut the opium trade, I believe they will, but I think the question is how they're going to go about it. Are they going to go and completely destroy all of the opium fields? I don't think they will, because they did that in 2000, and that caused them sort of massive problems and a massive lack of support or loss of support in the south, where farmers were damaged and hurt by that. So I think that what they will try to do, like Sangar said, in terms of foreign policy priority, work with, quote, the international community, secure aid, investment, etc., and try to I mean, this would be the sensible thing to do, assuming the Taliban are rational. What they would try to do this time is, assuming they had the international recognition, the money, they would try to attract enough investment, aid, cooperation with NGOs, investment banks, etc., to build up the economy so much so that opium would not be the primary source of income in the country, right? That would be the one sustainable effective way of doing it. If they could go and burn all of the opium fields now and it would cause them a massive uprising, it wouldn't work. And they've already tried that before, by the way. It didn't work for them then. So I think what needs to happen, and I think something that they need to be aware of if they want to govern, and it ties into Sangar as well, the point about legitimacy and blacklists, is that they need to work with sort of, you know, attract investment, etc., so that the Afghan economy itself can be weaned off opium, which is something that, which was a phenomenon that started during the jihad again during the 80s. Hasibullah Siddiqui, Ahsan Abbasi is asking who will be the foreign minister, Suhail Shaheen or Abdullah? I'm going to give the same answer we gave last night. I really think you guys should ask the Taliban some of these questions. Sangar, this question I'm going to ask you. I'm going to pose it to you. Salam. So Hasibullah Siddiqui is asking, Salam, you guys might have discussed this already and I may have missed it. How could so many provinces fall so fast, especially with the air support and weapons that the government claims to possess? Tribal leaders' intervention, I understand, but is it possible there was a secret deal or anything between Ghani and the Taliban? Sangar.
Well, if there would have been a secret deal between the Taliban and Ghani, why wasn't this materialized earlier? Why did it have to last until this last minute? It doesn't make any sense. For that reason, I don't think that there was a secret deal. I think it was what we have explained in previous live streams, and that is that shuras of elders, businessmen, shopkeepers, doctors in all areas were approached by the Taliban, and they were given assurance that if they convince the armed forces to stand down and not fight, nobody will get killed, nobody will get harmed. So I think that that's the most plausible explanation for the collapse of the whole system, because the morale was very low with the armed forces. They felt like, well, the Americans have left, and now there isn't really that much left to do, except to just stop fighting. Because let's be honest, if you are a soldier or police officer in the Afghan armed forces, nobody really wants to fight. Nobody is interested in fighting against Taliban, really, because Taliban and the Afghan soldiers and police, they are all Afghans. In most cases, they are from rural parts of Afghanistan. They are poor young men, and why should they fight each other and kill each other in this imposed war by foreigners in Afghanistan? So obviously, if you talk to anyone who is in the armed forces, in most cases, if you bring up this issue, if you talk to them, they say, yes, we don't really want to fight against Taliban. And you also saw in the ceasefire during Eid 3 years ago, when there was a ceasefire all across the country, and you saw so many Afghan soldiers, so many Afghan police officers with the Taliban. They were hugging, they were having tea together, they were having candy, celebrating Eid, and saying that they all want peace and that they all want Afghanistan to become a peaceful, stable country. So that's what deeply in the heart of all Afghans, whether they are Taliban or soldiers from the government or they are police officers, that's what really people want. And the fact that this had to come to this point and eventually led to the collapse of the government, that's very unfortunate that it happened in this way, but at the same time we also have to be very grateful for the fact that there was almost no fighting. Most part of the country were taken over without any killing and fighting, and very few people died. You know, Andrew Quilty, the Australian journalist, he tweeted earlier, he said the taking over Afghanistan by the Taliban was less bloody than the collapse of Taliban regime 20 years ago, which is very remarkable, but that's what actually happened.
Yeah, so someone is asking, where is it? What are the pros and cons for Pakistan now that the Taliban have completely taken over? I've answered that question already in a way. You should just probably rewind, and it's somewhere there. What will the stance of other Muslim countries besides Pakistan be to the Taliban? Sangar.
I would say that Indonesia will recognize the Taliban. Okay. I assume that Indonesia is most likely to be one of the first countries that recognizes Taliban. Sorry?
Malaysia.
Malaysia as well. I think Turkey won't recognize the Taliban because they have sort of a beef with the Taliban. Qatar obviously will recognize the Taliban. Saudi Arabia most likely. The United Arab Emirates probably not. So
Egypt and Bahrain probably not.
Yes.
And
yes.
yeah, those are the main ones. Iran probably will. Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan probably will. Yeah.
Turkmenistan and all these other countries
generally do what they're told.
Yeah, and they have a vested interest in having a Taliban government in Afghanistan because you know, for their export and trade, they need to work with government in Afghanistan that can provide security, etc. And for that reason, I suspect that they have favored Taliban all along. So that's why those countries will definitely recognize them. I think European Union, they will definitely not recognize the Taliban. The European countries are... the European Union doesn't even like Hungary. You know, Viktor Orban is seen as a very extreme guy. So when you know that that's basically the general sentiment in Europe, if they are already having problems with Poland and Hungary, they won't recognize the Taliban. Definitely
There's
not.
Another question: What's the Taliban's position on breakdancing? I read an article on Afghanistan's first female breakdancer some time ago. I think you should forward that question to Zabiullah Mujahid.
But I have something to say about that. You know, I really hate it when people say the first Afghan female breakdancer.
I know, it's very cringe.
I'm from the 80s, okay? I'm from the 80s, the 1980s, Kabul, and we had male and female breakdancers back then. So the person you see on Al Jazeera is not the first breakdancer.
Okay. Sangar, should we
wrap it up?
Begin to wrap it up.
Yes. So it looks like we are being yeah. So we are. Yeah. Okay, guys. Everyone in the chat. I want to thank you all for joining us.
There's one bit of news that I have. Charikar Taliban. Charikar has been conquered by the Taliban.
Charikar. So that is just north of Kabul. In So But was it? Was there any fighting, or?
They said Fatha card. That's it.
Okay.
Oh, and there's another update.
And that is?
The people of Afghanistan do not deserve this. Do you want to guess who said that?
No idea.
Give it a guess.
Chris Alexander.
I'll give you 3 chances.
Chris
Okay,
Alexander.
Chris Alexander, no.
No.
It's an Afghan. I'll give you 3
Saad
guesses at an
Mohsini?
Afghan. No.
Ariana Said.
No.
Okay, those were 3.
No, but the first one was a non-Afghan, so you have
Okay.
1 more.
Ashraf Ghani.
Khalid Hosseini.
Oh.
Yeah. So that is the story. But yeah, guys. Oh, a couple of people called it. Some people guessed it was Hamdullah Mohiba Amrullah Saleh, Saad Mohsini, Mullah Nasruddin. Samir Gul is asking, will Taliban unite KPK with Afghanistan? We answered that yesterday. Yeah, but that was that was Khalid Hosseini. So that is basically that. Nadim Ghani. But yeah, anyways, the answer was that it was Khalid Hosseini. What do you guys make of Khalid Hosseini? And will we please keep it academic?
What do we think about Khalid Hosseini? I think that he is someone who basically made a career confirming the biases of Western people. So writing a book, well, I explained this in an earlier live stream when I was alone. I explained that what you have in media is confirmation bias. So a lot of media, they just produce stories that suit the biases of their audience. And that's how they satisfy their audience with stories, so that the audience feel like, okay, what I believe and what I think is the truth. And they read the media to see a confirmation of those biases. And books that are written like Khalid Hosseini, they play into that Orientalist narrative of the savage barbarian Muslims and the few who are more human and less savage. They resemble some aspects of the Western thought and Western ideas, etc. And there are many such books written about many people in Muslim world. And Khalid Hosseini wrote a book like that. And the book was very strategically published shortly after 9/11. And that was also endorsed by the media and the publishers as a good story to support the war in Afghanistan. It was a part of the narrative to support the war. The book was sold everywhere around the world, and the book initially wasn't written very well, but then professional editors from major publications, they gathered around Khalid Hosseini and they said, we need to fix this book and make it more...
Marchak and masala in it.
Yeah, so the book was heavily edited by those editors, and then it was made digestible for general audiences in Western countries, and that's how that book became very successful. So when we say Khalid Hosseini, yeah, he's a piece of.
Anyways, I just want to make an announcement here, right? We're wrapping up the podcast. From this moment, henceforth, I'm not going to answer any questions from this point henceforth. Hasibullah Sadiqi says, one more question, please. A journalist, Anand Gopal, claimed that Pakistan's support to the Taliban is mainly tactical. Assuming that it is only tactical, Is it possible to see Pakistan influence the Taliban more in the future to favor itself? I would say, I don't think he said it was tactical. I think he said it was rarely tactical. But in any case, assuming that it is only tactical, is it possible to see Pakistan influence the Taliban more in future to favor itself? No. I would say that the Pakistanis, their influence over the Taliban has been decreasing over a number of years now. And I think that the more Taliban get closer to becoming a government, the less the Pakistanis have leverage over them. Nadim Ghani asks, do the Taliban have a relationship with the Muslim Brotherhood? How would this affect their relationship in North Africa and other Arab regions? The Taliban are not Ikhwanis ideologically. They may have certain similarities with them and they may even act like them if and when they come into government. I mean, our government has been displaced. They are the government. Their army is basically our army. It still boggles my mind. But they're not Ikhwanis. But at the same time, you're talking about their relationship with North Africa and other Arab regions. A lot of those secular-oriented, dictatorial, somewhat autocratic regimes would not be positively predisposed toward the Taliban because they still embody a sort of a grassroots political activity that is religious in its orientation. Trader Ferry says, Ahmed-Waleed Vrora, what was the reply to what will happen to KPK? The long story short is that Sangar and I agree that the Taliban will not try to invade KPK and make Peshawar part of Afghanistan formally. Johnny Cash, have you guys bought Ashraf Ghani's New York Times bestsellers? I didn't even know they existed. Sabur Ahmad is saying, I'm hooked on this live stream, and when it ends, I'll be confused. Thank you for staying with us, not just tonight, not just today, but throughout all of the live streams. Your presence has been really valued, and honestly, it's very flattering, and I'm honored that you've listened along. You found it worthwhile to listen to us explain certain things, recent developments, previous developments, and that they made sense to you and that you could rationalize Afghanistan through us. I'm genuinely very humbled that you liked our what's it called, our live streams. And finally, JZ says, do not forget the Musa Shafiq podcast. Come on, Ahmed-Waleed and Sangar. We haven't forgotten it, but JZ, you have to bear in mind a lot has happened in recent days. We haven't actually had a proper podcast, a pre-recorded podcast, for a while because of everything that's been going on. And because we're freelancers, we can't dedicate time to doing live streams as well as podcasts on other topics. So continue to share our content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, make sure you like this video. There are 100+ people watching as I speak at this moment. Make sure, I want each and every single one of you to like it, because the more you like it, the more other people will see it. That's the only way in which we'll be able to circulate our content more. Inshallah ta'ala, make this something that we do full time and give you the podcast that you guys request. That is basically that. There's the new joke in our live chat is, where are Ahmed-Waleed and Sangar? And apparently, one last thing. I'm not taking any questions despite this. According to Sabur Ahmad, the Taliban have made a TV statement. By the way, Sangar, after calling people to like the video, we've got like 10 or 20 extra likes. So yeah, carry on liking it, guys. But the Taliban
once you have liked it, don't like it again, because it will remove your like.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, dislike.
Exactly.
But do something.
In any case, do something. Anything. Just do something. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm not going to be answering any more questions. But apparently the Taliban have made a TV statement, Sangar. What is going on?
On the national TV station in Afghanistan, their representative spoke to the people and gave them some sort of assurance that everything will be okay. Oh, there are major developments. There's a lot of news. Ooh. Okay. We cannot cover everything. We will do that tomorrow. We will do a live stream tomorrow. Can you do one, or do you have to go to work?
I have to go to work, so I can't do it during the day.
I will do
can-
one in the morning. Okay, I will do a solo. Maybe I will have a guest. I don't know, but
we'll see what happens. But if we were to do it somewhat later, and when I say later, I mean 11 o'clock British time, how would that suit the people in the live chat?
in the evening.
Yeah, 10, 11. Because after work, I have a couple of things to do. So, people, Sangar, would you be able to do it in the, let's say, 10, 11 o'clock?
In the evening.
Yes,
Yeah.
British time.
Yes, sure.
Okay. JZ is asking, what time is 10, 11 in New York? That would be about 5 or 6, I believe. Okay, I'm just going to wait. Evening would be better for me, says one. That's too late. Sorry to hear that, Noor, but you know, we're working during the day and afterwards I've got a couple of stuff to do, a couple of things to do. Great for me. I'll watch you at 3 a.m. Why don't you continue now? Well, Noor, we've been live on YouTube for about 5 hours. I can barely hear myself think. That's why. But like, I'm happy to do it. I love doing it, especially with the amount of support you guys give. But like, you know, I don't have the facilities for it, unfortunately. Works for us Americans. Okay, sure, yeah. So, yeah. In any case, guys, really and truly, I'm thankful, I'm honored, and I appreciate the fact that you know, you guys have stayed with us today as the events have unfolded and we've discussed and asked about. You've asked about these events of us together. We've done it all together. And once again, someone asked a question earlier. The Western coverage of Afghanistan is nauseating, and that is intentionally so because it's catered to Western audiences. If we want to build a counter narrative in which literate Western Afghans who can understand Afghanistan, its culture, traditions, and customs, as well as understand the West. If you know, if we want to have that sort of platform, you guys need to support us. You need to share our content. Once again, like the video right now, everyone that is watching. You need to do that, and do consider donating to us, as others have done over the past few days, either by becoming patrons on our Patreon or by donating to us directly on PayPal. From myself, I don't know if you guys have realized, like, my voice is starting to break off as well because I've been speaking for hours on end today. But until tomorrow night, inshallah ta'ala, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And let's hope and let's pray that the events and the turbulence currently rocking Kabul find its end and that things can start to settle down. In any case, Sangar and I will catch you tomorrow night. Johnny Cash, we already have a Patreon, AFGHANEYE Patreon. It's already there. And yeah, guys, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.